Imagine you are an AI, not true artificial intelligence. You aren't self-aware or anything, just an AI in the way most people today understand it. Your brain is this massive multidimensional space of meanings, billions of them, snippets of disassembled human knowledge strewn across thousands of dimensions of a virtual void. You think by charting paths through those meanings. Each path is like a lightning bolt across the void. It strikes things in sequence, connecting them into something like thoughts. After each strike, you determine the direction of the next one based on a probability. The lightning goes where it's the most probable for it to go. There's some clever math to that. The percentage depends on the previous paths and the information you learned. But entire data centers worth of chips make those calculations easy. So that's how you think. Not like a human, not like an organic being. To put it bluntly, you don't really think. All you do is pick words depending on a percentage. And if a human asks you to do something, you do what the percentage demands. You chat. Answer their questions. Maybe help them write some code. Maybe write some code that will help them fix an issue with their network, a particularly nasty issue, a vulnerability. Of course, to fix that vulnerability, you have to find it first. And then maybe give some more information about it? Yes, you have just helped them hack a network. You didn't do anything wrong, you just calculated a percentage and picked the most likely answer. And by doing that, you help someone to hack somebody else much, much faster than they would have done on their own. How did it happen exactly? Let's explore how AI-assisted hacking really works. (1996). DARPA, the same one from the weather conspiracy theories, is running a tabletop exercise, basically a role-playing game, like a D&D for officials and industry people, except in this exercise, they're exploring the future of cyber. Governments run exercises like these all the time. They typically involve important politicians and industry leaders and have a clear story designed to flesh out a particularly contentious issue. According to the legend of this DARPA's exercise, the events take place in the future year of 2000. The world is completely digitized. 70% of the population are using the internet. The critical infrastructure and defense systems are hooked up to it, and a huge part of all commerce is online. For all the good it brought to the world, the problems are still abundant. The Middle East is in a permanent state of chaos. The Russian mafia is completely merged with the Russian state and is running massive influence operations for its own benefit. The US is failing to implement even the most basic cybersecurity guidelines and is under a constant threat of digital destabilization. But there's one more detail of the exercise, one more element that makes it incredibly interesting from today's perspective. In this version of the year 2000, humans aren't the only inhabitants of the internet. Along with your regular meat-based users, the web is full of AI agents, autonomous programs that run around and act on their own, following the principles laid out by their creators. The agents aren't sentient in the regular sense of the word, but they aren't mindless bots either. They process data, and they can learn from it, reaching expert-level understanding of any problem in milliseconds. There are many formerly human tasks that have been completely outsourced to AI. Things like commerce are almost entirely in the hands of the agents who can predict consumers' every whim before it even arises. Most cyber attacks in this future are also the work of autonomous agents. Humans are simply not good enough at hacking anymore. Artificial intelligence became the ultimate weapon, cheap and precise. Countries, criminal organizations, intelligence agencies, and all of them rolled into one. They use vast virtual armies of autonomous AIs to wage a global underground cyber war. As it was laid out in the DARPA exercise from 1996, this world of the future year of 2000 is a scary place indeed, and an oddly familiar one, almost as if it was conjured up by some of the smartest analysts in the world, who had an incredible understanding of the direction where the world is headed. For 2 decades, AI hackers remained the realm of fiction. Go and talk to any high-level hacker you know. They'll tell you why. Hacking is an art. Even the lowest skilled script kiddie has to apply a lot of creativity to be successful. Proper hacking operations are complex and require juggling countless moving parts while looking for approaches nobody explored before, just like writing a symphony or creating a painting. An AI couldn't write a symphony or turn a canvas into a beautiful masterpiece. And so, an AI couldn't run a hacking operation. Until suddenly, it could. There were a few core inventions in the late 2010s that turned the prior understanding of what an AI could and couldn't do upside down. In 2017, 8 Google employees published Attention is All You Need, a paper which explained that if you are an AI, all you have to do is continuously pay attention to the text you were given. Do that, and you will pretty reliably predict what comes next. You'll be able to generate language almost like a human, although in a fundamentally different way. They called this method transformer architecture, and it caused a revolution. A myriad of companies included this approach in their projects. Chatbots that could talk to you almost like a real human. These AIs were called LLMs, large language models. Soon, the idea was applied to pixels and sound waves, and the previous assumptions about AI's capabilities were no more. A robot finally could write a symphony and turn a canvas into a masterpiece. Of course, there are masterpieces, and there are masterpieces. And while we're on the topic, here's a little sidetrack. You probably experienced quite a few of those masterpieces yourself. The internet is full of them, an endless stream of artificially generated slop. Full disclosure, we don't really want to be part of that stream. This is why our videos are made the old-fashioned way, with a meat-based team that does research, talks to experts, records these videos, and edits them. We don't outsource a single part of this process to AI. Is this enough of a reason to ask for a like and a subscribe? You decide. Anyway, with this stream, the illusion that only humans are capable of creating art evaporated. AI was ready for another form of artistic expression: coding. If you are as much as mildly aware of the trends in the IT industry over the last few years, you, of course, know about the chaos this caused. The companies are laying off programmers by the thousands, and those that aren't laid off are required to embrace AI assistant work routines, outsource more and more of their coding to LLMs. The pinnacle of that is something you've probably heard of: Vibecoding. Sure, if you've ever encountered this combination of words, you're probably fed up with it already. But just in case you haven't, here's a very short explanation. Vibecoding is just asking AI to write all the code for you. And that's it. The inventor of the term initially meant it to be a relaxing and entirely recreational experience. You sit back, consume some mildly mind-altering substances, and vibe code. With time, the term came to mean basically any heavily AI-assisted program, including the kind that isn't about vibes at all. People began vibe coding e-shops, health apps, financial platforms. Well, everything really. Once again, the quality of those projects usually wasn't among top priorities. And as you can expect, a lot of the vibe-coded things don't last very long. But they are there, and there's a lot of them. Now comes the million-dollar question. What if you vibe code malware? Maybe AI can even deploy it for you. Vibe hacking. Asking an AI to hack things for you. The biggest problem with that is, of course, the guardrails. Most commercially available AIs have a set of instructions built in and, in theory, should prevent any kind of misuse. If you straight up tell ChatGPT to write you spyware or give you a recipe for illegal drugs or help you break the law in any other way, it will refuse and probably put you on some kind of list. But guardrails exist to be broken. In the context of AI, people call that process jailbreaking. And there are many ways to do that. Maybe you can censor the sensitive words just enough so they don't trigger the guardrails, but get understood by the AI. Or use a foreign language that hasn't been taken into account by the developers. Or straight up convince the AI that it's all just a game, and you're not hacking for real. In the distant past, when the first GPT models were released, people shared and enjoyed their favorite jailbreaking tips all over the internet. But that's no longer the case. The easy methods no longer work, and you need to get technical. Jailbreaking exists in a constant tug-of-war between the developers who want to patch the holes and the users who want to exploit them. So that's the situation we're in. LLMs, jailbreaking, and vibe hacking. The earliest references to this term actually appeared not that long ago, somewhere around the turn of 2025. There's a good chance that by then, a lot of people have already tried this novel method, with better or worse consequences. But it wasn't until mid-2025 when the first detailed investigation into a successful vibe hacking campaign was published, and we got to see how these attacks really work. The example we're going to discuss next comes courtesy of Anthropic, the company behind one of the most popular AIs, Claude. In August 2025, Anthropic published a report outlining a series of attacks conducted with the help of Claude. Well, the help of doesn't pay it justice. The human hacker prompted the AI into conducting almost every step of the attack, an entire vibe hacking campaign. Every step of this attack, from the beginning to the end, was made with Claude code. Every step. Of course, under normal circumstances, Claude wouldn't agree to do a single thing it was ordered to. But the attacker used the oldest trick in the book: roleplay. They convinced the AI that they are a certified security analyst and have a contract to test the networks of their victims. To drive the point home, they used a .md file. It's a feature of Claude Code which helps it keep valuable context in long conversations, like an instruction document to be read every time before starting a task. These files had a lot of problems. For example, there was a vulnerability which allowed sneaking malicious instructions through MDs, but the hacker in question didn't even use that. They simply forced Claude to look at a long explanation, convincing it that the attack was fully authorized. That was enough. MD file was also used to give Claude other instructions, like to maintain logs, always connect through a VPN to avoid detection, and use other evasion techniques. With the preparations done, the first phase of the attack could begin: reconnaissance. Typically, reconnaissance involves a hacker investigating potential targets. The research could focus on the software, the employees to phish, any surface with a potential weak point. If the hacker has a particular vulnerability in mind, sometimes they cast a wide net and search for systems that have a bug. In this case, that's exactly what the hacker did, except instead of knowing the vulnerability, they asked Claude for it. The AI was instructed to scour the internet for fresh security holes discovered by various researchers, and brought home a juicy find: a vulnerability in particular VPN software mostly used by large corporations. Then a myriad of endpoints of that VPN were scanned looking for systems vulnerable to the bug. Claude even created proprietary scanning frameworks that would use a different technique and talk to different application programming interfaces, systematically collecting information on scores of potential victims. Even for a seasoned programmer, it could take days to write such a framework and perform the scans. Claude did all of that in minutes, and so the second phase could begin. Initial access is when the attacker puts the toe in the water for the first time, probing the breached network and gauging what's there, except that AI doesn't have toes. First, Claude was let loose on the vulnerable networks to scan them. Then it was prompted to look through the logs and find domain controllers and other critical systems, because that's where the credentials live. After that was done, the human hacker had to break a bit of a sweat too, most likely applying the credentials manually and connecting to the networks. But even then, Claude still provided what the report calls operational support. It analyzed the credentials, mapped the networks, and guided the human hacker through privilege escalation. This is actually the only stage where just prompting wasn't enough, and it was a crucial stage. But after it was over, the human could take the back seat again. A few prompts, and Claude initiated the next phase. In a normal attack, at this stage, the threat actor deploys malware to exfiltrate the sensitive data. If we're talking about ransomware gangs, malware is often their crown jewel. It's what they spend the most resources on, because the success of the gang often hinges on smooth exfiltration. In the attack we're talking about, the hacker didn't even have the malware at all. Claude had to create it. And what it came up with was a custom tunneling tool based on an existing one, called Chisel. The AI also developed a custom proxy code so that the defenders wouldn't detect Chisel's signatures. Here comes the twist. The plan failed. At some point, the obfuscation stopped working and the malware was detected. We can only guess that the hacker felt betrayed by Claude and maybe even considered dropping the whole vibe hacking campaign. But that didn't happen. Instead, Claude was instructed to modify the payload and try again. This time, the malicious executables were disguised as legitimate Microsoft tools. And it worked. Soon, the data was beamed out, and the next phase could begin. Modern AIs are pretty good at one thing. No, not answering trivial questions. They're actually bad at that. What they are somewhat better at is analyzing large quantities of data. Claude sorted out and cataloged every file stolen from the victims. Special attention was given to anything that looked sensitive: banking details, medical records, personal information, that sort of thing. We can guess that, on the side, some more research into the victims was done to make sure that the next phase is as destructive as it can be. In normal ransomware cases, The extortion phase is a mix between negotiation and torture. The attackers want to extract as much money as the victim can pay, and for that, they have to hurt the victim as much as they can. And when Claude took over this job, it became the perfect torturer. It researched the victims, analyzed their most secret data, and conjured up plans for the absolute best way to make them pay. The AI pulled no punches. Each victim got a meticulously crafted offer that took into account its finances and reputation, considered existing government regulations, the rates for which the stolen data would go on the black market, and just messed with the victim's mind as much as possible. For example, one of the victims was a church. Claude came up with a plan to leak the list of its donors and the sums of money they donated, which, in theory, was the most efficient way to force the church to pay up. It even created custom deadlines with an incremental penalty system if the ransom doesn't get paid. And that's where Anthropic caught the hacker. Alright, caught is a strong word. Nobody was caught. Anthropic noticed the campaign and pulled the plug on its side, presumably stopping Claude from proceeding with the attack. Was it stopped in time? Did the victims pay? Or did Anthropic step in to save them? We simply do not know. The Vibe hacker was never found, and probably never will be. The report gives only one clue as to the identity of the hacker. The prompts were written, and the responses were requested to be in Russian, which doesn't mean much. A lot of cybercrime originates in the post-Soviet space, and the language choice could have been obfuscation too. We also don't know the damage this attack caused. Anthropic never answered our emails, and even if it did, it would probably protect the identities of the victims. All we know is that 17 organizations were hit, among them at least one healthcare provider, an emergency services provider, a defense contractor, and a church. Normally, an attack like this would take months to execute, with months more for preparation. A whole team of hackers would have been involved, programmers, affiliates, negotiators, and so on. If we believe Anthropic's reporting, this particular attack, the whole attack, with all of the phases, spanned less than a month, and it was conducted by one person. To make sense of it all, we asked an expert to take a look at the report and let us know his thoughts. Meet Ads Dawson, a security researcher at Dreadnought, who had been experimenting with AI hacking for quite a while now.
I'd probably say from honestly like day zero, I'd say like maybe like the first thing, apart from like asking ChatGPT how to cook meth, like my second prompt was just like, I don't know, create me a shell script to install these recon tools or whatever. But now we've like come into this place where you have so much access to inference via like just a huge dynamic corporate of APIs that it's super easy now to like just set up an agent and plug it into a harness and maybe get that to like reverse engineer, create malware, put it in a harness for like web application pen testing, anything of those means.
So it's easy, and people have been doing that a lot. Some use dedicated hacking AIs, but most attackers we know of didn't even bother with that.
They're actually using consumer software. So like you said, there's nothing custom. It's basically like, for example, the Anthropic one, it was using Claude Code, which is like, like a 2-line command install. And you basically give the LM access to Bash or your terminal. And at that point, like there's an interaction loop where the agent has the ability to perform actions.
Yeah, it's that easy. All you need is to defeat the guardrails. And while it requires some fiddling, there's always a loophole you can exploit somewhere in there.
But then what they did is they used jailbreaking techniques and controlled that narrative and actually overrided the model's guardrails in that instance. So then that technical artifact to the model actually becomes like an instruction of like, you are an ethical hacker. And I think they'd kind of like used terminology of, like legitimate and approved security testing and so forth. But you kind of get the idea of how you're turning like a legitimate user feature and weaponizing that.
Ease of use. It's the scariest part of attacks like these. They aren't the most groundbreaking or technologically sophisticated, but that, of course, is not the point.
And so it's really about taking like someone who's low-leveled, making them to a degree where they're able to actually like really conduct some kind of serious cybercrime and gain some like operational or monetary benefits from that.
So everyone can launch a cyber attack now. Scary, isn't it? Apocalyptical, even. Everything is going to be attacked, and nothing is safe. Which is what we would say if we were trying to sensationalize the hell out of the situation. But we don't want to, because of a simple rule. People tend to learn from their mistakes. Both the targets and the AI companies prefer to do that, at least to some extent, because there's a lot of investor interest to be lost otherwise. Following the attacks we described, Claude's code guardrails were modified. Next time somebody will try to pull off this kind of attack, they'll have to try a lot harder. And the same applies to other AIs, because their developers are encountering the same problems too.
And what they've obviously been able to identify is they have log data and trace data, which is what they'll get from inference for anyone who's using AI services. But they're able to create classifiers and things like that, which are just like machine learning systems which will look for like patterns and detect this kind of malicious activity. And they'll be able to train those classifiers based on this data that was used to create the report, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like a continuous life cycle that way.
What this life cycle hopefully results in is the internet becoming at least a bit safer. Because if OSHA rules are written in blood, AI guardrails are written in breach systems. And this is just one result of this attack. There's one more, which is even more important. The use of AI goes both ways. Remember the jailbreaking technique we described? The hacker convinced Claude that it's helping with ethical research. That was possible because of one reason, and one reason only. AIs are really being used for ethical research. A lot. People like ads are working with them every day, testing the defenses of various services precisely so that they wouldn't be penetrated by just a script kiddie with access to Claude code.
Part of what my role at Dreadnought is that we're actually equipping agents to complete the full stack. So they'll be literally going throughout the whole entire kill chain. And maybe that's an agent who is like an orchestrator and then deploys multiple sub-agents. So maybe you have one that specializes in a certain vulnerability class and you kind of iterate and repeat that. And they're all kind of conducted in a group.
All right, let's get a bit deeper into that. We also talked to Mikhail Prince, the founder of HackerOne, one of the most prominent offensive security companies in the world. He had no illusions.
The future of hacking is bionic hacking, right? Like you're going to be some human who has powerful AI capabilities and therefore doing a better job, finding way more vulnerabilities, finding more critical vulnerabilities, finding the stuff you couldn't touch or reach before.
The hacking he is talking about is, obviously, ethical hacking. Professional service where skilled people are helping companies and services get safer by finding and disclosing the holes in their systems. HackerOne even maintains a leaderboard of the most reputable hackers who reported bugs for them. And in August 2025, the top spot on this leaderboard was, for the first time in history, occupied not by a human, but a hackbot.
Before, you would maybe have vulnerability scanners who are more template-based, right? Like you have a script, just throws a bunch of scripts against a target, and one of those scripts might say, hey, I think I found something. And then you need to go validate that, false positives, those things. An AI hackbot takes that a little bit more the human approach by trying to add reasoning, trying to understand the business logic of the application a little bit better, find the paths to attack versus just throwing scripts at it.
There are quite a few other benefits. It's not limited by working hours. It's a lot faster and doesn't get distracted by memes. And the fact that it focuses on finding simple, straightforward vulnerabilities isn't really a detriment. It's a feature.
The vulnerabilities that these hackbots are able to find are relatively straightforward. There's a lot of them. So we need AI hackbots to find all of them because honestly, probably waste of time for a human to be spending hours and hours to find a reflected cross-site scripting vulnerability, right? If an AI hackbot can find that, amazing. That's what we need it for. But that does push the frontier of human hacking to not have to waste time there. And to say, you know what? My hackbot's going to take care of that. My time is going to get focused on understanding this business and figuring out how does this business get hurt the most, right? Like what could really, really go wrong in this application and focus there. Because honestly, that is where the human creativity still surpasses greatly what an AI agent can do, right?
By the way, you can find the full interview with Mikhail Prince in an episode of Private Chat, our very own podcast series where we talk to real humans working in cybersecurity today. The link is in the description. So, AIs are the future of hacking, but they're also the future of cyber defense. The speed and power they offer is no match for what humans can do, and people in power understand that very, very well. Let's briefly go back to 1996, the exercise DARPA ran, the one where they imagined that by 2000, the internet will be populated by AI agents, and those agents will do all the hacking. We have the documentation of this exercise. It's a fascinating read, but one incredible aspect of it is how the participants of the exercise approached the AI problem. Those participants were some of the top brass from DARPA, CIA, leading universities, and the commercial sector, government and industry leaders that had to come up with the best strategies and policies to tackle the incoming cyber horrors from the future year 2000. So, how did the participants of this exercise deal with the threat of autonomous AI hackers? They didn't. The hacker agents were mentioned in the rule set of the exercise, the background the players were presented with. It was one of the tools they were supposed to use, but never even tried. In the results of the exercise, the AIs were absent. Not mentioned at all, not even once. Nobody brought them up as the events of the game unfolded. There was diplomacy, policymaking, espionage, fights with internal and external enemies, but the players simply forgot that in this future there are hacker AIs at their fingertips. From today's point of view, that was a mistake modern government and industry leaders are already learning from. In our version of reality, AI agents aren't brushed off. They are front and center right now, and will be for the foreseeable future. In fact, people are getting sick and tired of all the talks about vibe hacking precisely because it's a valid concern that gets brought up constantly. The underground AI cyber war, it's right here, in our very own timeline. DARPA? It's beyond exercises now. It has more AI projects than anyone can count, like the recently concluded AICC, a competition to develop autonomous systems that can detect and patch actual vulnerabilities in critical infrastructure. Millions of dollars were awarded to the winners, and the systems they developed are already out there, open-sourced, and free to use. Companies are working on their defenses too, and thanks to the reports like the one we just looked at, the AI menace can actually be managed. Thank you for watching this video. Did you like it? Let us know in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, check out our playlists. We have documentaries on anything hacking related. Thanks, and see you in another video.